My name is Lamisi Goura, and I'm the service owner of engineering productivity in technology and services at DNB. I'm originally from Ghana, meaning my parents came to Norway in 1972, and I grew up in an area called Høybråten in Oslo. I went to a school called Haugen skole. That was a barne- and ungdomsskole, which is the primary or elementary school. And I later on went to Oslo Handelsgymnasium as my high school, which is situated in the city center. And from there, I went on to study at the Oslo University College. I did my engineering degree in IT. Later on, I did my master's degree at the University of Oslo, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and also design, use, and systems interaction. My dad, first of all, he came to Norway in 1972, and he came as a student. He came as a young person and seek to travel or leave Ghana to, I guess, seek some sort of fortune in the world outside of the environment in which he grew up. So he came to Norway and he studied at Landbrukshøgskolen, which is the School of Agriculture at Ås. He did a dairy technician degree there and continued to do a career at Fellesmeieriet, or Tine, which is one of the bigger dairy production sites in Norway. Growing up with a father who was explorative, he liked traveling, he was very much into the academic world. That was of great importance to him. So he inspired me greatly into seeking, a career or profession or anything I could be, basically fulfilling, or grabbing the opportunities that was available and, going for the highest possible achievement. Was more along the why not embark on a journey when the opportunities are there. Growing up in a country like Norway, education is free, it is accessible, so it's more about you working hard enough into getting into the professions or having a dream about what you want to do. Growing up with a parent that was very into exploring and fearless, I would say, leaving his country where he left family and everything to go out in the big world and explore. He basically also instilled that sort of philosophy and mentality, I would say. Coming as a foreigner in Norway in the 70s and being one of the few ones here definitely was not an easy task. Building community, not having, let's say, familiarity around you. He was very much, open-minded and very much not seeing blockers in terms of placed in his way or obstacles that he found in the society. He always saw a way to fight through that. So he has inspired me a great lot in that sense, and I guess I've picked up some of his fighting spirit throughout my growing up here and the way I live my life. Having a dream from very young of always becoming something, of having a goal in terms of what do I see myself as an adult, has been greatly inspired by him first and foremost. He never really forced his own ideas on me, but rather asked me questions so I could figure those things out myself. My childhood dream was to becoming a doctor. During the course, after high school sometime, in the early or mid-90s, the onset of computers and the dot-com boom, sparked a lot of interest and I would say buzz in the media. So I caught an interest in computer science and IT engineering. And I found myself, with an engineering degree that I could be well versed in a lot of different domains. So that sort of opened my mind into the possibility of learning more than one thing. I still have a personal interest in anatomy and medicine and those kind of things, but I'm happy today that I didn't pursue, medicine as my main field, because all respect to doctors and caretakers, it is an extremely demanding and hard profession to be in. I think it would have been extremely tough on me in that context, and I'm quite glad I chose engineering and software engineering as we see how big it is become today. My first job right out of college was in DNB. So I worked in DNB initially for 3.5 years, and then I left, working as a freelancer and also eventually as a consultant in Accenture. I found it gave me a way or an exposure to a broader realm within IT and the possibilities of meeting different clients and also a larger community as such where I could develop myself. So I worked for Accenture for close to 3.5, almost 4 years. And I left the company and became an independent contractor, which means I worked with my own company and got hired into other big projects as an IT consultant. I worked as an independent contractor for about 8 years. One was the National Tax Authority. The other one was KLP. I learned a lot there as well, and I was very happy and proud that I was able to contribute to 2 major projects I had at the time. And then opportunity came back to DNB, so I joined DNB again in 2019. I did my master's degree in 2012. So I worked for a number of years, and then I decided to embark on a master's degree while I was working. So I did a master's degree in innovation and entrepreneurship. Basically, that degree is what sparked me to come back to DNB in 2019 as I joined a department called New Tech Lab, which is an exploratory wing of DNB where they experiment and build POCs and experiment with new technologies, and if it's something that DNB should invest further into. My journey has been not necessarily a one straight path where I joined one company and really wanted to head for the CEO, but it's rather, let's jump on where the opportunity has arisen. This is something that has sparked my curiosity, something that I want to learn more about. I guess an integral part of me is an ever-learning or ever-growing way of living or being involved. I am a person who very easily gets bored if it's too repetitive, if it's doing the same thing day in and day out. Once I feel I've outlearned something, I need to move on to the next thing. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, currently 13 and 15 years old. Of course, the best children in the world, and they mean the world to me. Hoping that I'm able to inspire them to go into the world and explore and be open to whatever comes their way, and that they're able to choose careers of their own and be content and find fulfilling talent or ways of living their lives. Both of them have shown a little bit of interest. They've done like summer school programs in programming. Obviously, this generation, they're born tech savvy or tech first. So they have not necessarily known a world without technology. They take technology for granted, and that would always be an integral part of their world. None of them have really expressed any strong desires to say, oh, I want to become an IT engineer or develop software as such, because they also know or use technology as an integral part of every day, whether schooling is highly integrated into technology, all the communication with friends and those kind of things. So far, they haven't expressed any strong engineering dreams and wishes. I was not that child who grew up, building and dismantling my remote control or playing around with the electronics and those kind of things. So it's basically after high school when, I was sort of reaching a point, should I pursue studies in medicine or should I embark on this new and big buzz that was currently software and the .com era, I would say. So it's only then that I decided, okay, I want to at least do a foundation course or foundation training in programming, and I had a couple of peers as well who caught on to the same interest. I decided to go, or let's say take a break from wondering if I should go for medicine or not. So I went into computer programming and doing a foundation year in computer engineering. From then on, I just loved it. It's sort of an infinite realm of possibilities of what you could do when it comes to software or building or engineering in general. And I think that is what I loved about it. I was quite, taken aback and also surprised, I would say, first of all, I was nominated by my colleagues for this nomination, and I think there were about 800 nominees. And when I got the phone call that I was among the top 50, I was very surprised. I didn't really think much about it in the beginning that I was nominated, but it also just dawned on me eventually that, wow, I've been selected out of a pool of 800 amazing women who have all, worked hard and contributing in their various ways. So that was, something that I was super proud of, and also, very happy about getting that recognition. I was fortunate, in the role in DNB to work in the US, in Silicon Valley, on a listening post that DNB has there as a technology scout. So that was, an integral part of, I guess, the rationale for why I was nominated. So I lived there about 4 months, sort of reporting back to DNB what the big tech scene was about, and the cradle of, a lot of the big tech giants that are based there. What are the discussions, what are they working on, and how can DNB fit into that context, and where should we sort of position ourselves when it comes to some of these things. I'm a strong ambassador for technology engineering, being one of the few women on the team, also the only Black woman on a team. I think whenever you do something or you're able to deliver something, people also see you as well. I've always been, or trying at least to contribute, in whatever way, and put my, let's say, heart to it, and try to deliver things that I can be proud of. If it will, once the circumstance and the environment and everything is optimal for it, I will do my best to deliver. I've been fortunate also to work with good teams and have good team players around me. Nobody lives in isolations or lives in a bubble on their own, to be able to deliver in areas that had great impact for people and also the organization. Who is my role model? It's hard to, I believe, to have one. There are also several, I would say, that I get inspired by, and I also learn lessons from people who I do not want to be like as well. You meet different people throughout your career, and some inspire you, and some people may have a personality or way of behavior that, to me personally, may go against my, let's say, values or something that I don't appreciate. So I also learn from those people and say, okay, if I get into a position or get into a similar situation, this is definitely not how I would operate. So I take inspiration from several arenas, both individual, personal friends, but also networks that I've been fortunate to be a part of, or leadership programs and that kind of thing. So it's hard to sort of single out one person and I say I would like to be like this. I listen to a lot of podcasts, I listen to, so a lot of inspiring stories are out there for me to draw inspiration from. I think one thing is the nature of engineering, or software engineering in particular, is that you're always looking to solve a problem. And there's always something, that needs to be solved. If you're not really geared into being a problem solver, you'll have a hard time in general, because the very nature of the job is solving a problem. Being willing to explore and also look for several viewpoints or angles, or be open to discussions and whatever else, is very important. To seek mentorship, alliances in terms of people want you good and want to see you succeed, is very important, because it could be a problem of a technical kind, or it could be an interpersonal issue, it could be, organizational issue and those kind of things. So network and, let's say, an extended family has always been something that has been important to me. And when I sort of realized that is how you can make you survive or make you thrive, I use that actively. As a young, fresh out of college, you're not necessarily realizing that all these dynamics are important. I've grown into understanding is a good survival mechanism. because it could be, biases in many ways, whether, you come up with ideas either that people are not supportive of. Also be humble too that your ideas may not necessarily always be appreciated and may not be the best ones. That's number one. You have to understand, when it's worth the fight, or when it's, maybe you need to take, a step back and say, okay, maybe this was not the best solution. When you have an understanding that, yes, this is a possibility, there may be alternatives where people are not willing to listen to you because you were the one presenting it. So something we call not invented here kind of syndrome, that some people, just because they didn't come up with the idea, they're not willing to back it. You have to have a certain discernment in the way that you see the world, or be open to see what is happening. I would also say that having a good, let's say, social network, or people that you understand want you good, will make you, or at least build a stamina that can make you stand in the storm for longer. I think that goes for in any situation, whether it's at school, whether it's in university, or definitely in the corporate or whatever workplace that you're in, to have that social backing from one or two people, seeking mentorships, or having coaches or mentors, or somebody that can sort of help you think through when things are difficult or rough, because that is a part of life there that was always pop up. I'm very proud of having been part of a movement in Norway that worked within the NGO space, and also the discussing racism and representing Black and African issues in Norway. I used to head an organization called African Youth in Norway. In the mid-90s, early 2000s, I was a very strong center for young people of African descent, where we hosted everything from workshops and holiday camps and everything to discuss issues around identity and how you could thrive in a society like Norway, or how you could thrive in the world in general, how to master life, I would say, being in a situation, coming from a background that we came from, and bonding over trying to find solutions. One of the key aspects, I would say, also some of the key initiatives that the organization sparked at the time, was racist language, calling for reform of labeling and use of certain terms in the Norwegian language. At the time, using the word Negro or Neger in Norwegian was everyday context. Journalists, teachers, was everywhere. Nobody really had a conscious approach or thinking around those kind of things. So in the late 90s, we sparked a huge national debate around using prejudiced words and bringing awareness to the way we discuss or talk about or label or name people. That is also a part of the anti-racist movement, and we need to bring consciousness in it. And that definitely has left its mark today, where today is much more better understood. And that by, one of the proudest moments is when I can sit in the tram or on the tube or whatever, and sit and I could hear non-African people explaining why you should not use the N-word. Then I would say, yeah, something has happened, in this context. I'm also proud of being a representative of African voices in culture. I used to also head a film festival and also an African Cultural History Week. Ran for about 10 years, from mid-2000 until 2014. That is something that I'm definitely proud of. In general, I'm proud of that I'm floating, that I've somehow mastered to survive life. Proud that I, have managed to survive in academia, have a degree, have built my own career. I feel like I still have a lot to accomplish, but in hindsight, I could also see that, yes, I've done things and I'm still living. Motherhood and just being there raising two kids has really occupied, my past decade and a half, I would say. And that has mainly been my focus up until now. I had to step away from a lot of the NGO work and a lot of the cultural festival activities that I was doing because I needed to focus on my two children and also, my livelihood and my career. Now that I've growing up and becoming more independent and seemingly needing me less, I can now probably be much more creative, into looking into more projects that have, more of a benefit to society other than me raising my two children. I'm an active also board member, for instance, so actively represented on several boards. That is taking up a lot of my time. Yeah, I'm slowly, let's say, getting back into it, and we'll see what holds for the next couple of years. We have a very strong representative who is employed as the head of diversity and inclusion. So that is something that DNB is gradually, building as a stronger, integral part of their work. Wenche Fredriksen is her name, and she's a tremendous force when it comes to discussing diversity and also introducing wording, concepts, the way of looking into working with a diverse workforce. So I really want to commend how she's working within DNB in that realm. The typical, organization chart, when you look at it, you see a heavy diversity on the bottom level of a pyramid, if you could use that analogy, but slowly as you move up the pillar, the diversity gets less. So that is an integral or a strong program that DNB is working on, bringing in that consciousness in the organization. I mean, there's so much bubbling on the African continent currently, and there's a lot of innovation taking place when it comes to IT, technology, and solving issues and making life easier. We do have to remember that the first digital money came from Africa. So way before online banking or anything like of that sort was introduced in the West. So in Kenya, Tanzania, they've had the M-Pesa system since the 90s when it comes to transferring money using your phone and also using telecommunication credits as value. Those are concepts that have never really been applied in Europe or the West. And I think there may be infrastructural challenges when it comes to the vast impact or the accessibility for a lot. It's still a huge continent that's contributed with some groundbreaking thinking when it comes to developing technology. One of the things that are, painful even for me to witness is, in the tech industry, when we're discussing where the next tech boom is coming from or where or who, let's say, are contributing to technology in the world, we're typically seeing, Silicon Valley, the US, we see Asia, and we see Europe. And Africa is left out as a big black empty canvas where, nothing is really put spotlight on or recognized as such, while there are massive things happening on the ground. I think technology is definitely a key to solving some of the issues, and also the ability to leapfrog over some of the, let's say, trajectory or journeys that the other countries have been through into reaching certain things or a certain standard or a certain level, I would say. I think Africa is definitely a cradle for many things, and I'm hopeful for the future when it comes to technology and innovation and impact-driven innovations that come out of the continent. Investments and funding, and also that are key elements to be able to scale an idea. I don't think there's lack of ideas. Once you have an idea, you need funding and marketing behind it to make the idea known, and also to be able to experiment, try out, test out, so you can refine the idea and also build a market. I think there are a lot of people who are super creative and have a lot of knowledge in many areas. Look at agriculture, for instance, and those kind of things. To have a global impact, you need funding and somebody to back those ideas. I think that is one of the key challenges that Africa as a continent needs to solve, and also build those hubs where people could come forward and share their ideas. Because it doesn't matter if there is a brilliant student somewhere, building a robot out of garbage and really solving a very local problem, if that does not spread out at large in the country or even in the continent. From time to time, you see brilliant people who have created things out of quote unquote nothing. You could just imagine if such people have both the platform but also the right resources to scale those ideas. So I think that are some of the things that needs to be addressed if Africa should be present on the map and also a world leader in technology and innovations.